you know.
That's true, because some of the questions you're answering.
Yeah.
Especially, well, the drug ones. You give a drug workshop.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, the heroin one. How would you get the facts for that? Do you just know? I mean,
it took, you know, that's taken a lot of research on my part and a lot of work. And in drug education, I think, is so sketchy because you can really just go in and either teach kids how to do drugs. You know, if you're not careful, you're basically saying, oh, here, if you want to try this, this is how you.
Yeah.
So it's something that I feel really good about how I present it, and I feel, but you get some dicey questions. I think one surprising thing or difficult thing that now I'm a little more used to, but the first time it happened, what surprised me was how hard, like, keeping confidentiality is very easy for me for youth. And I've said before, you know, that I will, you know, go to jail before I will ever, you know, defy confidentiality, unless, of course, it deals with harm to self or others. And
do you have to report that you're a certified? Depending
upon where I am, yeah. But I'm not what's really neat is I'm not a therapist.
Yeah.
And I really stress that because I do have opinions, and I do. So I'm sort of this mix of an educator and an advocate. Yeah. But what's hard is when I'm actually working with a parent community as well as a student community that I've become tight with. And there have been situations where, for example, one student from a school, I don't even think it was in California, I can't remember, but most recently, called, and this person asked, he basically said, I snuck out of the house and got stoned with my friends, and one of them freaked out, and so called 911 because he's just kind of losing it. And so all of our friends ran and left, but I've decided to stay, but I want to know what are my legal rights, because the cops are on the way. What can I do?
Oh, and that's a timing crucial situation too.
Totally. But here's the hard thing is, here's this amazing decision, first of all, to not bail.
That's really commendable.
And then just to try to figure out, do I have to, you know, what are my rights in this situation? How do I also help my friend? But then when I did a parent workshop, the parents, I figured out it was the parents of that same kid came up to me and said, we don't know what to do with our kid. You know, he snuck out, got stoned with his friends. He's a total mess up. We can't trust him with anything. No. And I'm sitting there thinking, this is exactly what I'm talking about. I can't tell these parents that their son made an ethical choice that was so rare for someone his age, and that someone that makes those choices, you need to really honor that and think about it. But that's the thing, is that we so often get only half the picture.
Yeah, and they have no way of knowing that their son was the only one who stood with his friend.
Right. Yeah.
It's a hard position to be in, hearing both sides of the story like that.
Yeah, it's weird.
That's strange. Yeah, and, well, okay. Now, I have another question. What were you like as a teen?
Oh, my gosh, wow. That's so funny. I think one of the things that I, you know, when we talk about, in some of my workshops, we talk about gender and how gender informs something we call fallback positions, which is where do you go when you just aren't even thinking, you're just scared and you're uptight and nervous. The brain, you go to extremes, and you go to a fallback, which are, what are some things that you used to do to cope when you were younger that now just pop in? And for young women, a lot of time it's the pleaser. It's like, what do you need me to say right now? And girls get very good at anticipating that before even their teacher or their parent knows what it is, and they say it, and it just really slows the evolutionary process of figuring out who you are. And I was that kid. I was so good. I was so good at trying to figure out what's going to really make this person happy right now. And then maybe they'll like me. And then, and I was also a saver. I wanted to, you know, save all of my friends. And, but I was one of those kids that, I was friends with the partiers, and I was friends with the students that were, and the young people who were also kind of marginalized. And I really was sort of a floater. And I think I really did become fairly irritated at the sameness of some of the cliques, so it was nice to float. I also just had a really tumultuous adolescents. Like, some adolescents kind of skate through at sort of this sort of even keel. I was not one of those teenagers.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of just, super
Like
highs
what?
and super lows.
Yeah.
It was just a really emotional, I think some of my students, two of my former students are godparents to my children now.
Oh,
and
that's
one is 30 now and one is 27. And something I had in common with them that they had when they were younger is that I felt turned inside out. I felt like my
Yeah.
filter, I felt everything very intensely, and it took me a while to
okay.
sort of harden up, and then I kind of swung the other way for a while. I was pretty cynical. And now I've sort of in that medium, I hope.
Good.
Yeah.
But that's, I mean, not to say it's good to have an up and down adolescence, but I'm sure it informs the way you talk to kids, maybe even in a positive way, because you can really understand what those lows feel like, what the highs feel like, just the feelings, the intense feelings that all of these kids are having. I don't know.
It's really nice because
Probably helps the empathy.
not only do I feel like as a consultant that I'll never consult without also teaching at the same time, because I think it's so important when I'm speaking, especially to parents or schools about adolescents, to be able to say, I just was hanging out with some yesterday. So that staying connected as a teacher,
that is nice.
so I stay in touch with youth, but now I don't even know what I was talking about. I don't know. Something about being young connected. I don't know.
Well, it's not. Anyway, let's see. How do you think the media has influenced teen sexuality, specifically probably girls' sexuality, but guys and girls too?
Yeah, I think, it's true. I think it affects both genders a lot, but I think the consequences and the stakes are higher for young women as a result. But I think we talked before about the stigma, I think, of of this distrust of youth. But I swear, if you were just to watch television or look at a magazine, and I talk about this with young people all the time, and I tell them, if you were to really believe all of that and really soak that in, you would have no time for even eating, because you're all having sex and doing drugs all the time.
It's so frighteningly extreme, these images that they're putting out there.
It's really remarkable, and younger, really seeing, girls who are 9 or 10, just
that's
really
true.
sexualized, and the makeup and the that removing them from who they are. The most striking thing what I talk to young people about, because you can, again, media education can also be done really badly, but is this idea of subject versus object. So when you look at the media and you look at these images of women, how many of those images is the woman the subject, and how often is she the object? And it's pretty staggering how much it is the latter. And I just feel that I talk to some young women who are either frightened to go to parties because of, the dancing can be just, freak dancing can scare the hell out of somebody. And also just younger and younger girls simulating sexual activity that they've never experienced and don't even really want to
understand exactly.
So I think and they feel somehow that this is normal. This is what they're supposed to be doing because they see it everywhere.
Yeah, and when you critically look at those roles in media, and you did a workshop with us, I think, on that, where we looked at subject and object.
Right.
And it's just surprising. You just never would notice daily flipping through magazines. You never comprehend what you're actually looking at.
Exactly.
And when you break it down, it's just so kind of scary how unempowered the women are in
It is.
magazines.
You have to really, again, take apart what women's power really means. What does it mean to be empowered as a young woman? It just gets, it's so overwhelming, the imagery.
How do you think that affects guys, though?
I think, there's this great film that won some award at which one? It wasn't Sundance, I don't think, but it's called, you think if the memory is going to kick in again, it's called Wet Dreams and False Images. It just came out, and it's like a 15-minute film, and it's really cool because it's a short documentary about this guy who runs, I think it's a barbershop or something in New York City, and he is talking, and he has pictures of women all over his shop, and all of his friends all contribute to it.
Whoa!
And the person who's documenting, who is a woman, comes in and says, how many of these do you think are real images? And he's like, oh, you can tell these aren't airbrushed. I only picked the ones that aren't. you know, because you can see this tiny little thing here. So
Yeah.
this isn't airbrushed. And at the end of it, it shows the person who basically does touch-ups and shows that almost every single one of those images
Wow.
is